Austin Friends of Traditional Music Online. My name is Gary Mortensen, and I'm going to be talking in just a moment to two wonderful members of the organization. And if you don't know about the Austin Friends of Traditional Music, or the AFTM as we call ourselves, we've been around since 1974 here in Austin, Texas. And we've been promoting traditional music of all kinds in many different ways, concerts, workshops, wonderful festival in October. These are the kind of things we'd like to do, and of course last year was a tough year for us. With the pandemic and all, we had to cancel just about everything we did, but we're getting back into gear. Things are different this year, and I'm looking forward to talking to these two folks right next to me. They are stalwart members of the Austin Friends of Traditional Music, and they are Dan Foster and Christy Palumbo Foster.
Hey Gary.
Howdy.
Hi Gary.
And we are in their Austin home as we speak, in musical instruments all over the place as is appropriate. Well, I don't know really the backstory behind y'all, where you came from, such as that. So what if I start with Christy and say, are you a long-time Texan, Christy, or where did the Christy Palumbo story begin?
I moved to Texas in 1976 in January. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and came down here on a kind of a vacation, look around, you know, where can I move to, kind of visit. I had some friends here, and I came down to visit in January. People had shorts on, and I thought, I like that. And went back home and packed my bags and came down on the Amtrak train, and I've been here ever since.
Great story. How did music come into your life? Was it before you came to Texas that you were musical?
My mom and dad were very musical in the sense that they loved to dance, they loved to socialize. They did not play any musical instruments. But my dad would wake me up in the morning singing Fats Waller tunes. My mom would they both loved music. They loved to dance, swing style. And you know, everybody in my family played the clarinet at some point, because I have a grandfather that played clarinet and guitar from Italy. I knew him until I was about 11. He passed away. But yeah, I started playing guitar probably around freshman year in high school. And just kind of picked up some tablatures and some of those old Doc Watson books, you know, and learned this finger style.
Yeah, so you're more in a folk direction than rock and roll, correct?
Yes, although I had two older brothers, and I really do like the old R&B, some rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah. So by the time you did get to Texas, you were playing guitar for a while already.
Yeah, I was playing guitar, but not in public. You know, it wasn't till I had a friend that was living here, new friend, who took me to the split rail where the AFTM was having their monthly meeting. Apparently they just had started at the split rail, and they coaxed me to get up there and play a few songs by myself. And that was a new experience for me. And I was like, well,
that's a great story. The AFTM was kind of like the...
Yes, yeah. Dave and Maggie Polachek were very persuasive, you might say, at that time. And so that's when I started playing around town, and then I've just been playing ever since.
Yeah. Well, Dan Foster, I'm not so sure about your story either. Are you native Texas, long-time Texan, or how would you?
I've been here as long as I've been anywhere. I was born up in Denton, North Texas. My dad was teaching high school in Canton down in East Texas, and we lived there from when I was born until he went to Iowa City for 3 years when he got the chance to do some graduate work. Got his PhD there, and came down and taught microbiology at Texas A&M, where I was from about the 4th grade on, where I grew up over in College Station.
I see.
Not too far from here.
Yeah. Was there music in the family as you grew up?
Yeah, my grandparents on both sides really loved music. On my dad's side, they really loved country, old country music. And then my grandfather, who my mother's father, we were a little closer to, he played piano. And when we were little kids, he played rags. I remember he played Nola, which is a quick little rag.
Oh, it sure is.
And played for us kids. And he had an old Victrola, and we'd listen to Hoagie Carmichael and Johnny Mercer and things like that. When I was like 4 or 5 years old, I still remember. The Old Music Master was my favorite song from Johnny Mercer. But yeah, and then we moved up to Iowa and came back down here to College Station, and I was a youngster, about 14, I think, in 68, 69, and I used to ride my bike all over town, and I rode into a little place called the Coffee Loft on University Drive, and there was a man, and he was playing the guitar, and it sounded like my Gramps' piano playing, that stride kind of bass, but it was just coming out of a guitar. And then he took out a fold-in knife and slid it up and down the strings, and I couldn't believe it. It turned out that it was Mance Lipscomb, who was from Navasota, just down the way. And I'd always kind of liked music and been around it, but I had never been as affected as anything when I heard him play, and I thought, well, that's just astounding. So I went to the music store, H&H, where this old band instruments, but I knew they had records there. And I asked if they had any music like I described, and he said, oh, you'll want to go to the folk music section. So I went over to the little bin that was there, and I pulled out a record, and it had these white guys in red striped sport coats with straw hats and banjos, and I thought, that ain't it. And so I was a little puzzled. I managed, oddly enough, to find my way into the only hippie head shop record store in town, which was called Budget Tapes and Records, and run by a guy named Tiger McLean, and I encountered those Arhoolie records that Strachwitz had put together of Manson. So from there, discovered Tampa Red, Lonnie Johnson, Charlie Patton, Blind Lemon Jefferson, and started eating up as much of that as I could.
And were you playing an instrument yourself at this time?
I played guitar. Mainly we were kind of little rock and roll tykes. We really liked the Mothers of Invention. It was like the Beatles and all those guys, but we were big Captain Beefheart fans. And then I had a lot of friends who were black, and I always felt kind of funny trying to play that music. But I really loved the country, the old style blues sound, and began a fascination for me with music from the teens and 20s and sort of 30s, and I sort of began to lose interest after that. But that was just the thing that something struck me. I don't know what it was.
Well, those names you mentioned are the cornerstones of traditional blues music. I think that's a wonderful way to get into this kind of
Back
thing.
in those days, they had these great record catalogs that they'd send to your house. You know, the Rounder record catalog and the county sales and the Shawnee, and you save up your pennies and order and wait for your LPs to get there. And the LPs would have 3 yards worth of notes in tiny print with all the information. And it was a lot of fun. And I tended to just get interested in all kinds of things, and sort of was reminded of the story of Hank Saposnik, who's one of the founders of klezmer music. Started out as an old-time music fan, and he was at Tommy Jarrell's house apparently, and learning how to play the banjo or guitar from Tommy. And Tommy asked him, obviously knowing that he had a Jewish background, said, "Don't your people have any music?" And he said he began to think about it. And so I sort of began to think about it the same way, and at that time drifted into the English folk rock scene, Fairport Convention, and those guys, I guess in 71 or 72. And thought that was really cool, and began to do that. By the time I moved to Denton, some years later, I was interested in Irish music, and met a really good friend there, Tim Walsh, who was an aspiring uilleann piper, and I grabbed a flute, and we played together for years. And then I moved down here to Austin and ran into Ralph White, and Ralph and I used to busk on the street, played Irish music, and roomed together for a good long while. Met John Polachek, and through John, met the AFTM, and through the AFTM, met Christy.
And the circle is complete.
And the circle was complete.
Yeah. What year was it when you two met each other, would you think?
I want to say 1978.
Probably 78.
There was a festival, Waterloo Park.
No, it's the Zilker Park in that one, wasn't it?
No?
First they were at Zilker, and then later at Waterloo.
Well, I just remember you at Waterloo. So, maybe my memory's off. But yeah. Yeah.
Did you start playing music together pretty promptly after
No,
meeting one another?
not really, because he did Irish, and I
Yeah.
really didn't play Irish. I liked kind of ragtime and fingerstyle,
Yeah.
different old jazz. So we played some.
Yeah, we hung out.
I
We
did
was
learn
friends
some
for a
Irish.
long time. We play some of that stuff.
You and Ralph would be playing Irish music, and they had a room together. They had a house in Clarksville, and I remember many a times going into the room and taking a nap.
And that stuff.
But it's like it's very mesmerizing sometimes that Irish, and especially
Yeah.
when Ralph plays the accordion. Oh my goodness.
Well, the scene here was really wonderful, and from there I got turned on to the old time music scene from musicians around here. Bernard Malberg being one of them, John Polachek and Dave and Maggie, and it was just a really nice scene of people playing and enjoying music. And I had done a stint on radio when I was in high school. About my junior year, I lucked into the job at WTAW. They had just gone from AM, since they've been broadcasting since 1928, so they were an old station. And they just gotten their FM transmitter put in place, and they'd been doing AM/FM simulcast, same thing on both. And I lucked into this situation where they asked me, well, you're a young fella, we'd like to get some interesting music on our FM, would you like to do a show? I said, sure, can I play anything I want? And they said, yeah. And I was deeply into trying to find anything that was interesting and cool. And so for, I guess about a year or so, all my little teeny bopper audience might tune in and hear Bella Bartok or Dr. John or Furry Lewis.
My goodness.
Or just whatever. And it didn't take them too long to fire me from doing that kind of stuff. You can imagine. So,
Yeah.
but when I got here to Austin, sort of the same thing happened. Lamar Adkins, who was doing traffic down at KLRU, said, hey, they got an open slot. And Howard Lynette was the guy in charge down there. And I had some prior association, though I'd never actually met him, I think. He used to work at KPFT down in Houston. And so he hired me and started doing a show on KUT at 8 o'clock in the morning. We met John Ailey down in the basement, and we had old World War II era broadcast equipment. It was kind of neat. And that went on, oddly enough, for 20 years. So between 81 and 2001, I did a show which was, for most of the time, a 6-hour program from 8 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was kind of fun because you get on there with that much space, you could do whatever you wanted. So I'd spend time figuring out what was going on around town, and we could definitely publicize all the jams, CTBA, AFTM, swamp rock, whatever was happened to be going on. We had live music all the time. It was very wide open.
Yeah.
And really pleasant and enjoyable experience.
Was this a weekly show?
It was on every Saturday. However, fortunately for both of us, I didn't have to do it every Saturday. My friend David Oberman, whose taste leaned much more towards the singer-songwriters, and I was more interested in his historical, traditional kind of music. So it would vary from week to week, and we had an audience, and whatever there was an intersection in interest, they remained with us, and wherever there wasn't, they would tune in on their appropriate week.
Yeah.
And it worked out really good for like 21 years, Dave and I did that show.
Wow, a 6-hour show. That's
Not unheard of. It's just because one of the things we could do, I had a little thing that I called the regular specials, where we could focus on not so well-known artists like Smokey Wood from down in Houston, great hipster piano player from the 1930s, and do an hour-long thing on his life and play entire song. So those were really fun to be able to do that.
and this is very pre-digital era.
Oh yeah.
So you're queuing up the records manually each time.
I'd bring down 200 or
Carrying them
300 LPs every time. We always had the request line open, and everything I could find and seemed appropriate we'd play, and it was like a big family all over Austin.
Well, I wish I had lived in Texas. I didn't get here till a couple years after you were finished with that show. But that's a great story, Dan. When you two did get together, what kind of music did you find in common to play together initially? Do you remember?
Old time tunes.
Old time, yeah.
Mhm.
I went to some old time festivals in Missouri when I was probably still in high school and then maybe a little bit after with my cousin Lisa, who we were talking about earlier, and so I was exposed to old time, and I found myself playing the bass lines to a lot of, that's how I would learn the tunes. I just looked for the bass lines on my guitar, and so I guess it was probably old time, and that we played together. Yeah.
And what instrument were you playing at that point, Dan?
Well, I played the flute for a long time, and then a good friend of mine, Ed Baggett, suggested that I look at the fiddle, and he gave me a tape, and Angie wouldn't loan me a fiddle, and I slowly began losing all my friends.
This is when our twins were 2 years old.
Yeah, so we had lots of things
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And I had two or three jobs at the time, and still did the radio. Somehow, I don't know how we got through all of that, but it was something else. We managed to survive through it.
Because I've heard you play many tunes with Christy on guitar and you on fiddle, so that started back in the 80s, probably?
Yeah, 83,
Yeah.
83.
Yeah, well, kids were born in 85, so a little bit after that. But then you also played mandolin.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick that up too, because it's
at
similar.
the same time.
Yeah, and then we'd sing old harmony songs. And
Of course, you played the Irish flute, before
Oh,
that.
wooden system.
A wooden style flute.
and still love that music, and we'll get together, played with Ralph for a number of years and other friends. We had, for a while there, I thought was the coolest name for an Irish band. It was called Finn McCool and the Red Hots. Charlie Mills and,
Yeah.
and Mark Bickford and Rich Brotherton and Ed Miller sometimes. And we used to play the St. Patrick's Day things. But we play really good stuff, I thought. I still got tons of records that we used to get back from Shawnee. During that period, I was deep into trying to learn all I could about regional styles in Irish music, and became really fascinated with music in New York. And Andy McGann and the people who came after Michael Coleman up there, fascinating stuff. And a huge influence that he had all across the board, and even into Texas style fiddling. You'll hear versions of Coleman's tunes. The Bonnie Kate reel is one they played that I think may have found its way into the tradition, I'm not sure, through Benny Thomason, who was somebody who would range far and wide, finding tunes that he liked and bring lots of Canadian tunes into the tradition. It's fascinating. So I was always interested in history of stuff from the time I was a little kid, and they set me in church, and the main interest for me was try to find the oldest hymn in the book. See how far back I could go.
Wow. Well, Christy is a great fingerstyle guitar player, and that was pretty much your interest right off the bat. That's the way you like to play the guitar from the start of your playing?
Yeah, of course, some of the first tunes, like a lot of people, was The House of the Rising Sun, and I was probably strumming that. But I also, somewhere along the line, I got to learn some ukulele from one of the best ukulele players I know, Bob Brosman, who was living in St. Louis going to school at the time. And
Wow.
so he showed me some strums that was a traditional Hawaiian style, and so I found a banjulele in St. Louis. Happened to be at our local music store, and it was, I don't know, it was like $100, I think. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. It was a Gibson. I still have it. And so, yeah. So I like, ukulele and guitar, pretty much my instruments. I love piano, but I've never been, never been able to learn. But we are enjoying our son who plays piano beautifully now. As a matter of fact, he's got your grandfather's
Yeah,
piano at
grandfather's
his
piano.
house.
Yeah.
So-
And there's a ukulele ensemble in town, isn't there?
Yes, there is, Yeah, I went to there. I think there's up to 150 people now, all playing ukuleles.
Wow.
And they have a big
Uh-huh.
auditorium they play in. They started at Central Market for their meetings, and there were maybe about 20 people. And I thought, oh, there's a lot of people. But now it's like very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We liked Western swing,
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I like Western
My
too.
introduction, I guess, really to it came through a guy named Kevin Coffey. He was pretty well known in those circles. Kerry Janelle, who used to have Texas Rose Records. When I did the radio show there, Kevin came on. He was a student here at UT, and he had all these old 78s and all of the really good stuff from the 30s that I happen to like so much. And we play a good bit of that, and we kind of had an overlap there in some
That's
of those
true.
old tunes.
Yeah.
My skills didn't enable me to do too much, and but we enjoyed hearing them both.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that long ago that I heard you two playing a Milton Brown tune, for example?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll play
We
that
played
later.
that one a little bit earlier today. It's fun. It's a blast.
Do you think we might talk you into playing a tune for us today?
Sure. That'd be
Probably
fine.
so.
They're willing, folks. Okay, well, let's give them a chance to get their instruments, and we'll get a musical treat here from
All right.
Dan and
All right.
Christy.
Thanks. There it goes.
One of us was wrong and so we parted. One of us was wrong and now we're through. Don't know who's to blame, but it's all the same. I just know I'm alone and blue. One of us was wrong and so we quarreled. And that's the reason my nights are so long. I'll find her and tell her I'm sorry. One of us was wrong, all wrong. Now one of us was wrong, and so we parted. One of us was wrong, and now we're through. I don't know who's to blame, but it's all the same. I just know I'm alone and blue. One of us was wrong, and so we quarreled. And that's the reason my nights are so long. I'll find her and tell her I'm sorry. One of us was wrong, all wrong. One of us was wrong, all wrong.
All right.
We're going to play Catletsburg, which is an old-time tune from Ed Haley, who was a famous fiddle player from back in the 1920s in Kentucky. See if I can play it.
fortunate enough here to be with Fosters, and we're gonna play. What do we say? St. Anne's Reel.
Yeah, let's
All right,
do it.
So
that'll
let's
do.
give it a whirl.
Well, Dan and Christy, thanks so much for letting us invade your household here, move furniture all over the place. We sure appreciated it. Your music
Anytime.
sounds wonderful as always, and we'll be staying in touch with you to find out about upcoming playing opportunities.
And thank you, Gary.
It
and
has been
Chip.
a
That's
pleasure.
it, yeah.
And thanks to all you for watching. Remember our website, which is www.aftm.org. Check out the website to find out what's going on with our fine organization, and stay tuned to our YouTube channel, because we have more of these interviews coming up soon. Thanks so much for watching.